Today on the AMP'D UP211 podcast, Earl Granville. Earl served 9 years in the Army National Guard as an infantryman. On his final tour, he lost his left leg through the knee to a roadside bomb while on patrol. Earl now spends most of his time traveling the country, public speaking, motivating others, and winning countless awards for his volunteer work. It is our pleasure to introduce this extraordinary veteran, Mr. Earl Granville. Earl, how you doing today? Good to see you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Woo! Wearing green this year.
I see that. I feel like I'm out of season here in my, I don't know, it's just some kind of reddish type of shirt here. I do appreciate you being here. I know you are super busy. I get a little dizzy when I follow you because you are kind of all over the place in many parts of the world doing many different things. You volunteer, you compete, you publicly speak. There are so many aspects to your daily, let's call it. I'm sort of blown away by it. When I was thinking about you, because I have followed you for a long time and we've been communicating through email, I want to say maybe over the last 3 to 6 months, just, trying to find a good fit for you to come on the show. When I really think about your story, and I've done a deep dive. I've done a deep dive on Earl Granville. Man, we could do a docuseries on your life. There's so many aspects to your story when you consider your humble beginnings in Pennsylvania to you're going into the military, into your relationship with your twin brother, to losing a limb in combat, to what I like to refer to, we'll call this episode the comeback. He's coming back from this. And all of that is just vast. So when I think of, well, I've got Earl for an hour, I'm like, shit, like, how am I going to fit all this in? Because there's a lot. So I think where I want to start a bit is, given all of what you do, what you've been through, the first question I would ask you if I just bumped into you on the street would be, who inspires you, Earl?
Who inspires me, man? I thank everyday people. I know people are, you hear a group of people who are like, oh, I just don't like people, this and that. Like, I'm the other way around, man. I love people. If I could meet every damn human being on planet Earth, man, I love what I do. I love when I speak to an audience and they come up and, I don't just, hey guys, thanks for listening, and I'm out the door. No, I love to hear their stories. I love to hear, sometimes they'll tell me their hardships and their adversity, what they've been through. And I just love hearing all of that. And I just think everyday people, and just, I got this second chance at life, and it's, and we'll get into that later, but, the second chance at life, losing somebody close to me at their own hands shortly after, it just made me realize I can't waste this.
Yeah.
And it's why I'm pulled in every direction, and really just enjoying what I do. And sometimes really damn tired.
And I think it shows. No, I think it shows because, when I watch you publicly speak and when I see you engaging in your volunteer work, it shows you can't fake that. You can't fake that connectivity that you definitely have with people and how you reach and inspire in the way that you do. What would you say is the way that you go about kind of balancing it all when I think of you, I sort of think of that guy that's like spinning the plates, and you're kind of like trying to keep them all spinning, so to speak.
Mhm.
What would you say is, what gives you that ability to, and it might even be practical stuff like I'm a good planner, I write shit down, or I fill my
Mhm.
calendar, you know, but what do you think allows you to engage so fully in so many different things?
I feel that I just well planned. I don't have an assistant. I do everything on my own, and I like it that way. Even when it comes to my speaking, I don't use an agent because I feel like I have the ability to determine what I charge, depending on my audience. Like, big corporation like Pfizer had me come speak last year. I
Yeah.
threw a number out and they accepted immediately, and they're gonna get my program. The local Boy Scouts down the street, I'm gonna do that for free, and you're gonna get the same exact dynamic of what I deliver. And
Yeah.
I feel like that gives me the freedom to talk to whoever I feel is appropriate, and which I haven't really turned down a gig yet, or because I just feel like anybody can relate to what my program is when I speak. And I feel like that with the charity work, the two organizations that I'm highly involved in, one is Operation Enduring Warrior, and the other one's the Oscar Mike Foundation. In both these organizations, we help wounded and disabled veterans and law enforcement and building to more first responders as we grow, live an active lifestyle. And I think some with a partnership I have with Spartan Race, that gives me the freedom that they give us so many bibs for an event. And what this does is, hey, do you ever want to run a Spartan race? Oh, I don't know if I could do something like that. Why don't you come join our team? Won't cost you anything. You just got to get there. We got
Yeah.
like 3 extra bibs. Bring a friend with you, so you're not doing it by yourself with a bunch of strangers. And
Yeah.
I feel like this once again, it gives me the freedom to bring people to my world, which I found a lot of joy, a lot of purpose, being a part of something bigger than myself. All these three P's I talk about in my program: having a purpose, developing a passion, being a part of something bigger than yourself. I'm not just speaking in front of an audience, but these charities I run in Spartan, the community, it's given me an ability not just to speak it, but also invite people inside of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it's just
Totally.
and
And
it just goes full circle. Like all these people now are building their relationships, achieving physical goals they never thought they would be able to. But beyond getting that medal at the end of the finish line with these charities I run, it's the relationships we build with one another that you have built a friendship. Even with some people, they've romantic relationships have been involved, and people start dating, and even a few marriages. It's pretty funny just the way it all works.
That's so true. When you're engaging, let's say, like a corporation like Pfizer versus, let's say you were to speak to a disabled group of people. Do
Mhm.
you feel like that messaging has to be massaged in any way? Are there universal messages that you sort of try to stick to? And
Mhm.
or is there something in you as a speaker that you just kind of run on instinct? What does that look like for you in the planning phases before you speak to a group that is so vastly different in those two situations?
Well, one of the two I like to use actually is the difference between them is corporations and inmates. Both
Mm.
I've spoken to quite a bit, and even the disabled community. But to answer your question, let's focus on the disabled community. I always feel that it's been 10 years. I'm sorry, it's been 15 years since I lost my leg. I don't even think my whole life in my mind I've always been like this. Okay, but what got me to leading this way was stepping out of my comfort zone. And for people, somebody with maybe a type of disability, no matter what it is, physical, mental, cognitive, whatever's going on, I like to discuss the importance of stepping out of that comfort zone because you'll never know what you can achieve if you take that leap. But also, you don't have to do this by yourself, this journey that you're on. I found that with a community charity. The charities that are on the power of what community can do. It's not about me, it's not about you, it's about us. I use an example of what happened during COVID, during the pandemic. Is small businesses took a hit. So my community here in northeastern Pennsylvania, Scranton area, came together to make sure a lot of these small businesses didn't fold. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And that all ties into, if I'd be talking to an audience of people with disabilities, of don't let it define who you are. Something I like to always say, a buddy of mine, Anthony Busco, he was a first sergeant in the Army, and he's my teammate in Operation Enduring Warrior. I heard him say once what OEW, his idea of what Operation Enduring Warrior is. We're not going to let our honorees, we're going to make sure their disabilities don't define them. They're going to define themselves. And man, I heard that. He said that in a documentary, and I was like, it's just so poetic and so true at the same time. Something I like to always say is, you're only a victim if you choose to be a victim. We could be a victim of something, but that doesn't mean we have to label ourselves a victim. Does that make sense? Yeah. So hearing Busco say that, I said it's kind of similar, just worded a little differently. You're going to define yourself. But that would be something I would discuss to maybe a group of people with some type of disability. However, I feel there is a blanket portion of my program which I feel everybody can relate to. Inmates, people working in corporations, anybody, schools. I call my program the weight of adversity. And every single one of us out there has faced something heavy in their lives. And it should never be a pissing contest of like, I dealt with more stuff than you, or, if that's your attitude. Exactly. I always say the 3 recipe to find those 3 P's is a good attitude, stepping out of your comfort zone, and community. But right now, that first recipe, a bad attitude of, I've had more heavy stuff than you in my life. Well, right on, automatically you're lost. I truly believe that. Yeah. It's a pissing contest like that. Because everybody's adversity is different. What happened to me, somebody else might not be able to handle it the same way. But we could get you to that level. That's where the community comes into play. Okay?
Right.
And when I'm talking to corporations or professional sports teams, at the end of the day, the adversity that you face outside of your job, outside of your team, whatever goals you're reaching, that adversity is going to hold you down. Okay? But you don't have to carry it alone. Because when it holds you down, that team you're a part of, that job you're a part of, it's affecting everybody. So sometimes I like to say the power of what vulnerability can do, so you don't have to carry the weight of adversity by yourself. Reaching out to the right people, whether it's a counselor, whether it's maybe somebody you can trust, whatever it may be, all those things. Understand the power of what community can do, so we all carry it together.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and I've taken plenty of opportunity to listen to you speak online. There's plenty of content on YouTube where you speak to different groups, and in order to get a good flavor of what you bring to that space. I was thinking about you this morning, and I thought, well, obviously fitness. I mean, you were a soldier, you did tours, and of course you're a young guy and in shape. However, it seemed like after your amputation, fitness was very much a catalyst in your life, going to the next level and doing some of these really high functioning activities, competitions, and engaging yourself, pushing yourself, let's say, breaking boundaries. Am I seeing that right? Were you surprised at what you could do as an amputee?
You mentioned earlier in this podcast, who's my inspiration? One individual I always like to mention, and he's probably sick of me saying it, but one of the most humble human beings, and how he is as a father figure, how he is as a husband. Um, his name is Noah Galloway, and I don't know if you're familiar with Noah, but
Yeah, I've seen him.
anybody
I've
out
seen him
there?
online.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've
So
seen him.
Noah is a guy who I just saw on social media, and here's this guy missing an arm and a leg from his tour of duty in Iraq while serving with the 101st Airborne, out there doing just amazing things. And that was a little bit of a push into where I'm at today. I always feel like, and at the time, I never met Noah in person, but one of the things with Noah is when I finally did meet him face to face at my first ever Spartan race in 2013. I didn't know he was going to be there. And, so I fangirled a little bit, tore down my Noah Galloway poster so he doesn't see it. Not to make it weird, but that's how much I respected this guy, like, oh man,
Right.
like, and he said, do you want to run alongside us? And he was with an organization called Operation Enduring Warrior. And, and anybody out there be unfamiliar with OEW, I've been a part of them for 9 years now. And like I said earlier, our mission is to help wounded and disabled veterans and first responders stay active. And one thing that sticks out, I feel like, with any other hat that I wear with all these charities that I am a part of, is to become a team member in OEW is you have to be current or former military or first responder. And then that doesn't mean we don't take civilian volunteers. That is not what this organization is about. To become a team member, that is the first criteria, which I think is important.
Sure.
For a lot of people who
too.
may wore that uniform and they're looking for something of maybe to come back to some type of nature, who think the same, who were once part of something bigger than themselves. And so before we jumped on that Spartan race, each team member is in a multicam looking military style uniform, huddle around in a secluded area, and in their little backpacks, they pull out a gas mask and they don it. And I was like, man, you guys are hardcore. And after we ran the race, Noah said to me, what do you think about joining us? And I thought, man, I don't think I'm ready for something like that. But, this man who I respect a lot is asking me to join this organization. It's like I followed the Chicago Bulls my whole life, and I'm playing a random pickup game, and here comes Michael Jordan and said, hey, man, you want to be on the same team? Like, you don't turn that down, you know what I mean? So I went through this indoctrination. Half my class failed. It was a long weekend at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And I ended up, succeeding. Earning that mask in Operation Enduring Warrior made me realize the capabilities of what I can do. And what was slowing me down was myself. You know what I mean? Like seeing what some of these other men and women were doing who are amputees or just a disability in general. And I was like, man, why can't I do that? And also what this made me do as well is I'm leading individuals who are in situations like mine, help them reach their goal, which puts me in a situation where, well, I got to be in tip-top shape. I don't want to make somebody do something that I've never done. So it turned my thought process around of what I was doing. Okay. Like, dude, you got to be up on your A game when you're doing these events. And what this led to originally, which was just me helping, or not just me, but like my team out here running these courses with these what we call our honorees, helping them reach their goals. And grew a passion of just physical fitness in general. Because now I want to achieve things on my own. Like with OEW, I climbed Mount Rainier. And after that, I got an invite to climb Mount Elbert later on, which was, a new milestone. I got asked to run a race in the Netherlands last year, the first ever Spartan race for individuals with disabilities, and actually made the podium. And that was that hard work I did to get there. So I guess like
Yep, I
one of the
recall
biggest
it.
things is OEW pushed me out of my comfort zone and found this new passion, which is in physical fitness. And I felt like I was always active, but OEW helped me take it to the next level.
And I feel like as an amputee, so much of forward progress comes from realizing to get there, you have to become uncomfortable. That
Yes.
having those gains and that forward movement, if you're not uncomfortable, you're probably not in a process of change. You're in a
Mhm.
process of status quo, and
Mhm.
it's very unlikely that things are going to go to the next level unless you're feeling a little anxious, a little stressed, because that feeling, that uncomfortableness of, can I do this? Can I, am I really doing this? Then what I find, the more I do that and push myself, that's when I almost kind of feed on that energy. Like, I want to feel that way again. I want to feel
Yes.
like, oh shit, oh shit, can I do this? Can I really do this? And obviously,
Yes.
I'm at a very different fitness level than yourself, but reaching fullest potentials and plateaus comes from pushing those barriers and saying, no one's going to do this for me. I have to keep nudging myself forward. And at times, take a leap into something that is completely out of, let's say, what you ever thought you could do as an amputee. I went
Mhm.
skydiving for the first time last summer, and as an amputee, I thought, is this something that people like me even do? Is this something that I'm allowed to do? Having no clue, no idea. And you start to peel back the first couple layers and realize, well, of course, like amputees do it all the time. And then, social media is a beautiful thing. Oh, I'll follow this guy, I'll follow that guy. These people are jumping out of airplanes all the time. I mean, that's
Mhm.
their thing, that's their
Yeah.
jam. And going to that and being uncomfortable and doing it, I mean, Earl, I've got several family members doing it with me this summer. So
Oh, wow.
continuing to kind of, like you're saying, like build that little community, that little group to say,
Mhm.
hey, let's do this. And I mean, when an amputee asks you to jump out of an airplane, I guess it's to an able-bodied person, they're kind of like, well, he does it, and he doesn't even have both of his legs. I can't get
Mhm.
out of this. I guess I got to go. And I think that that's a really important lesson. Um, with all the different disciplines and activities that you engage, I tend to go to this place as an amputee myself. When I look at you, I want to talk a little bit about limb care with you,
Mhm.
because you're one of those high functioning amputees that, I mean, you're doing shit that I think, damn, this guy's he's beating on himself. I mean, he's really, really pushing the boundaries of what that residual limb can do. And
Mhm.
not to say that you don't have a great prosthetist and you don't have the right equipment. We all know, even with that secret sauce, there's only so far we can go.
Mhm.
So talk to me a little bit about what you do as an amputee to preserve your skin, to preserve your limb, to make sure that you can bring your best self to those activities.
Mhm. Well, truth is, I could be much better at it. So, and I am not like it. That is something that I'm working on. And the biggest wake up call was last year. Um, so the way how I have my socket designed, okay,
Yeah.
as an above knee amputee. Now, first off, my amputation, it's my left leg knee dysartec. So I have if anybody out there listening, you don't know what that means, it's basically I'm above knee amputee, but I have a full femur. So they removed the knee from the femur, they didn't cut through the bone. I
Got it.
woke up in Germany after being wounded in Afghanistan. Um, to the doc saying we're going to have to amputate, and that's what we came up with. I originally was a BK for about a day, and then they had to go back in. It's funny because I don't talk about that a lot, but yeah, I was a BK for a day, and then before I left Germany,
that rhymes,
they said,
you know,
yeah,
BK for a day.
BK for a day.
That rhymes. BK for a day.
There's you know what? There's a amputee band name right there. You know what I mean? BKs for a day.
Rock on, brother. Okay. Anyway, I digress. Sorry about that.
No, it's all right. I like it. But yeah, so right in the beginning, you know, I didn't, going into this, I had no idea. I didn't know how important it was for someone to have a knee compared to an amputee who doesn't have a knee. Like I just, oh wow, they're cutting a limb off. That's, you know, complete sheer ignorance to all of it. But as I move forward and as I get active, I noticed that like daily, at one point, I was wearing a running leg every day. I go to CrossFit depending on what the watt is, or I wake up and I go for my morning run before I do strength training. And I got sick of taking the leg off to put another one on. You know what I mean? Like the socket. And I think with an AK, it's more of a process, the vacuum seal and all that stuff. So I asked my prosthetist, I said, hey, there's that little screw on the bottom of, here, I'll even just show you guys. There's a little screw on the bottom.
Thank you.
Of your socket. Right here. Every socket that I've seen, it's usually, see, I'm looking at it as top right, but it's usually bottom left. So I'm down here with a wrench. But instead, I use this as this is a wrench. It's right here in front of me, and I just unscrew it like that. And what I do is I unscrew my walking leg off. I unscrew that, and then I just put a blade right on. I get out there, I do my thing, I sweat a lot, and then I, old switcheroo, put the other one back on. The downfall of this is sometimes I got a little complacent when it comes to cleaning my residual limb, which leads to infections. You know, there's no airflow there, so it builds bacteria from all this sweat, and I would get skin infections a lot. Antibiotic. Last year, we couldn't keep one under control. And when I was talking about I went to the Netherlands to go compete, I actually ended up in an ER right outside of Amsterdam. And
wow.
I learned real quick, you know, a lot of these ERs here in the States, I just asked them, it's like, look, little fluid in there, give me some antibiotics. Before you do that, let's stick a needle in there and drain whatever pus is out. Well, in Amsterdam, they were doing that, but they don't use Novocaine. So, whew, what a feeling that was, you know? And it's like, yo, let me record this. But, and I was very, very upfront about them. Look, I'm here in 2 days. There's a Spartan race in Zandvoort. I'm here to compete. Please, what can we do with this? So they drained it and put me on antibiotics, and I was good to go. 2 weeks later, back in the States, infection came back again. This is probably about the 5th cycle of antibiotics in such a short period of time. Like something's obviously wrong. I went in, they did a what's that when a woman is pregnant and their ultrasound, and they did an ultrasound, and they said, yeah, you got an abscess there and it's got to go like right now. So what they did was they sliced me open and they packed it, they cleaned it, then they packed it. And the big downfall of this, it's like not wearing my leg for a while.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I do recall on social media seeing you posting, you're strangely, I thought you were still pretty active, but you were hopping around quite a bit. There's a couple videos out there, and it's a little fuzzy to me because it was a while ago. But what I found so extraordinary, I'm like, he's obviously in a healing cycle, but there's Earl doing his thing, you know? I'm like, this fucker doesn't stop, man. It just never stops.
I ended up doing a few Spartan races on crutches, but I wasn't doing them by myself anymore. Like, I don't want to do a Spartan race on crutches by myself, so I had friends with me. The funny thing about that is in March of last year, March of 2022, I was in San Antonio doing a Spartan race. And there was these, they had to be military amputees, but they were ahead of me on crutches and I was catching up to them. And I slowed down, and the one gentleman knew who I was. And he says, man, you're a rock star, this and that. But my response to him was like, look, dude, you're the rock star, because I would never do this on crutches. A few months later, here I am doing it on crutches.
You shouldn't have said that.
I know. It's like I ate my words. I'm like, well, yeah, I kind of put myself in that situation.
They call that a jinx.
Big time, man. Oh, horrible.
You saw into the future.
And the big one was... Go ahead.
It's just so funny to me because I have found myself doing things like that where I'll say something and then literally like 3 months later, I think, oh man, I should have never said that because here I am.
It's like a universe
situation.
Universe heard you and they're like, oh yeah, you think you're not going to do that? All right.
Powers of the universe. Go ahead.
The big one was June of last year. I was team leading for OEW, an event. It's AT&T Stadium Spartan race in Arlington, Texas. Basically, where the Dallas Cowboys play. Mm-hmm. And I can't mask up and do all this stuff without on crutches. It just wouldn't seem right to me. And I asked the guys, like, look, how about I'll just be an honoree for this race, and you guys assist me through it. And like, yeah. So the rest of my mass athlete teammates. And I crutched to the first obstacle, and it's you pick up the medicine ball and you slam it. They call it ball slams. And I think it's like a 30-pound medicine ball. And it took me a little while because I'm, on crutches, so I got to balance myself, pick it up like this. And I just crutching to that obstacle from the starting line. And it's not like this is the first Spartan race I crutched at this point, but I'm like, this is going to take me all day. I handed my crutches over to my teammates, and I just started hopping. And I'm going to tell you something, man. That is something I'll never, ever do again. That was like a whole new level of soreness the next day. And there was this awesome video that somebody took, because you have to go on the field at one point, and I'm just hopping on the field, and somebody from the stands got a video of this, and somehow it ended up back in my.
That's what I saw.
Yeah.
What are you describing?
Okay. Yeah, that's my friend Emily Ledoux. She's running right next to me, holding my crutches, and then from behind me, running ahead of me, is the rest of the mass athlete team. And I saw that. I'm like, man, that's a cool looking video, but man, was it stupid. The next day, my foot was like, and my other leg was damaged too. I was almost a double amputee, but we salvaged this one. Were. And
right. I know your story. I know that you almost ended up with losing both. And I want to rewind just a little bit. And believe it or not, my first introduction to you was before I was an amputee. I want to talk about the 2013 memorial concert that you were a part of. I mean, we're going back a ways. Mm-hmm. And here's not that you're not young, but here's a very young Earl Granville telling his story, being, hosted, honored, by Joe Mantegna and Gary Sinise, and this compelling, just extraordinary story of these soldiers that they're talking about. And, never in my mind, here's this, this war hero, this veteran, this guy who's gone through a tremendous amount of pain and struggle. His family has gone through a tremendous amount of pain and struggle. And to never think someday, 10 years from now, not only am I going to meet this person, talk to this person, engage this person, I'm going to be an amputee myself. I mean, that's pretty crazy when you think about it. And I do recall just very much focusing on you and your story and just the beauty. I always, I very often, and I don't know if there's a coping mechanism for me, I very much refer to it as the beautiful struggle that you've been part of. Tell me about that concert and how that came about. I'm a little fascinated in terms of the behind the scenes kind of aspect of that.
Every year for the 4th of July and Memorial Day, PBS hosts what's called National Memorial Day Concert, which is the evening before Memorial Day on the Capitol Hill lawn of Washington, D.C. And they do it also for 4th of July, but I mainly the National Memorial Day Concert. I've been involved with them for a few years. But before I didn't even know this existed. It's live on TV on PBS every year. Someone from PBS, a producer, asked me what I thought of being telling my or having my story being told by two celebrities. And at first, like, what is this, a joke? It wasn't guaranteed, but they wanted to hear me out first. So I told my story, and losing my leg, and anybody out there, the loss of my twin brother Joe. And it started with us joining the military and till my brother's death. And I was a little taken back, because it was still fresh with my brother. At that point, it hasn't even been 3 years. And the fact that this was just going to be, on such a huge, I guess you could say, realm of people, was heavy. And I didn't know what to expect, right? And so PBS had myself, my family, my brother's family, and I got to invite a few of my friends as well down to Washington, D.C. to sit in the audience and see this live on TV. And Joe Montana told a story in my perspective, and Gary Sinise told a story in my brother's perspective.
And two brilliant actors.
Oh, yes. And two wonderful, wonderful individuals. I mean, I haven't talked to them in a while, but in the years I've emailed them, and it was them emailing me back, and wonderful individuals, especially Mr. Sinise, and the charity he's doing, what he's doing for the military community.
Yeah, very active in that space.
Absolutely. And I got to tell you, just sitting there, hearing your story with the orchestra behind them, and I'm just watching this, and hearing them tell the story of when I hit that roadside bomb in Afghanistan, and it's how I tell my story today to audience. My medic Doc Jones working on me, Air Force Tech Sergeant Eric Jones. We worked for the Air Force that day, and I was Army, but Doc Jones working on me, and I said, "How's everybody doing?" They're doing fine. They're doing good. We're working on them, and they put me on a litter, and they carried me behind a vehicle for cover, and walking past those two body bags, I knew it was my buddies, Major Scott Haggerty, who took my seat that day, which literally is why I'm still here.
Yep.
So what do I have to complain about? When I say second chance at life, I really mean second chance at life. And driving the vehicle is Specialist Derek Holland. And hearing Joe Montana say those words as if I was saying it, gut punch. It was heavy, you know? And yeah, and then moving forward, I even have to back up a little bit. They mentioned my buddy George Puglisi and that Joe was a little closer to George than I was, but George was killed on our Iraq deployment back in 2005. And hearing his name on a grand stage like that, that's another one. But then, the big moment. After losing my leg, I felt good. I was like, it didn't happen right away, but going to Walter Reed is 2008. So moving forward, I was just like, Joe was helping me a little bit of physical therapy when he can. He just had a new job at that point. So he was on, when you get that new job, a lot of employees, you're on that year probation of not taking off work. But Joe was like, they let him go right down and take care of me when needed. And my recovery was going great. I'm watching other people with much more severe injuries than me live a very active lifestyle. So my perspective, things were great. But my brother's perspective was a little different. And then because we were National Guard and we both worked in the same unit, basically, they pulled him from the next deployment. And I know that he didn't want that. I know Joe enough. He did not want that. And a week before Christmas in 2010, I'm getting ready for a black tie event. I get out of the shower. I put my suit pants on and my prosthetic and just a t-shirt before I get fully dressed. And in front of the mirror doing my hair, and phone rings. And I let it go to voicemail. I finish doing my hair. I see my phone and see it's my mom. I listen to the voicemail. And she's distraught on the other end. She needed to call me immediately. So I give her a call. And she's, she just keeps apologizing. And I just, Mom, calm down. What's the matter? While he was on active duty, my twin brother, Staff Sergeant Joe Granville, takes his own life. And worst day of my life, guys. And to hear Joe Montaigne say that, and what you're not seeing in that moment, it's like my family's right there in the front row while it's live on TV, and I know it's coming up because I obviously know the story. You don't see me. I'm bawling my eyes out, and then I see the camera.
It's super, super powerful. I mean, I would recommend, if you haven't seen it, to check it out. It's on YouTube. It's overwhelming, just the nature of it and the way it's done so beautifully and respectfully. And what a incredible legacy to your life. And really, when I think about you and going through wartime and losing, your leg, but then to come home to deal with what I would think for you was a much worse tragedy, losing a twin brother. And I mean, with siblings, we're all close. However, anyone I know personally, and you can speak to this, anyone I know personally that has a twin, you're close, man.
Right.
You're close. Twins are close. I mean, you grow up close. It's not like, your big brother or your little sister. It's like, it's almost like a part of you. And I think about your story, Earl, and I think, man, this guy lost two parts of himself. He lost a limb, and then he lost this twin brother. And for you to battle back from that, for you to be in the space you're in now, the way you inspire others, the way you engage so many, and it's not just about the amputee community with you. What's so remarkable about you is, yes, you volunteer, you serve, wounded, disabled, veterans. That community is certainly well served by you, but you reach a much bigger audience with your work. You reach the common man. You reach corporations, teams of people that are looking for the guiding light to find their best selves, to persevere and to push through whatever boundaries they create or that life creates for them. How are you doing now with all of that? And, how is that worked into like the fabric of your life at this point? Where does that sit, inside of you? What shelf is that resting on?
Well, if we're talking about my I guess my line of work, I could call it the speaking. It's one of the biggest purposes in my life. I can't imagine, like, look, I gotta be real. When my brother died, I was, especially how it happened, like
Yeah.
it hit me like a ton of bricks. And 2011, it was like self-destruction. That's what I feel like I was doing. And I'm not ready to openly talk about all that stuff, but I felt like the redemption, the comeback. And it's like I heard my buddy, I talked about it earlier, Anthony Busco, say, your disabilities don't have to define who you are. They're going to define themselves. And he was saying that like as of what we do as an organization. And I just thought, like, another thing, it's like nothing has to define who we are. Any adversity, disability, car accident, death of a loved one, you lost your job, any of that, it doesn't have to define who you are. And I started thinking that. It's like, so I do tons of podcasts, and I always they start off like, so Earl, sum yourself up. And I don't know, I'm just Earl. That's it. If you want me to sum it up, I'll be like, all right, I'm Earl and I figured it out. And now I want to give my ideas of what I figured out in these adversities that I faced in life and give it to the world, so nobody has to go into something like this the way I did. You know what I mean? Because for a while I was that victim. I was what I like to call Uncle Rico. I had Uncle Rico syndrome. You ever seen Napoleon Dynamite?
Napoleon Dynamite.
So, I was that guy. Rico. I was that guy living in the past after Joe died. You know what I did for my country? Nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares. I was in this dysfunctional veteran. Let me ask you something. Where does playing a victim get you in life?
Yeah, pretty much nowhere. Exactly.
And that's exactly what I was doing. I couldn't live that life anymore. And some of the people I work with, some of these, some of our honorees in OEW, some of our teammates at Oscar Mike that we try to assist through the course, it's like, look, man, it doesn't have to define you. No one's, at the end of the day, nobody gives a shit. But let's work together so you don't have to carry the weight by yourself to get you through this. Because I swear, when you look back, you're going to realize, you're damn fucking right, I got through that shit. Look at me now.
Yep.
And that's what I want to teach people. Mm-hmm. It's like, but the basic way to get through it, I feel like this is just my ideas. 3 P's we talked about. You have to have a purpose. You must have a passion, and you have to be part of something bigger than yourself. When I was in the military, those 3 P's were real easy. Like, your whole life is embodied wearing that uniform. But when you take that uniform off, we see a lot of our former armed forces members, they get lost. And that's where that Uncle Rico syndrome comes into play. You know what I did? Well, what are you doing now? You don't want to be on your deathbed decades from now and somebody says, what did you do with your life? You say, well, I went to Iraq. Well, that was a long time ago. What did you do after that? Remind
Yeah.
everybody you went to Iraq. Like, what's next? What that chapter closed? What goes on now? Find those 3 P's. My 3 P's. My purpose. I'm a public speaker and trying to discuss healthy ways to battle adversity and understand. It's like Bosco says, your injuries don't define you. You're going to find yourself. I want to give that to the world. My passion, what I do for myself, physical fitness and traveling. 2 things that are very important to me. And we could say dogs too. Who doesn't freaking love dogs, right? I got Sparta, one of them staring at me right now. Like, are we going out soon? And
Yeah,
number 3.
I've seen your dogs online, so they're cute.
Yeah, Sparta, she just had knee surgery, so that's why I'm home. So we're home for a few days, and she recovers with her little cone around her neck. Poor girl. But the 3rd P, which I feel is most important, being a part of something bigger than yourself. But you must be careful of what category you put yourself in. You know what I mean? I think something healthy, something that's part of the community, something that's assisting those that are in need. And that's why I do this charity work. And it's I'm watching people reach their goals. You know, like my buddy Nick Bikey, U.S. Air Force veteran. He just got his trifecta last year in the Spartan community. Nick was his injury is he lost sight in his one eye and he has to wear an eye patch. My buddy Steven Keller, he's finally going for his trifecta. We took him through his first fitness event with OEW, and now he's hooked. He's like, oh, what do I get that Spartan trifecta, the 3 pie pieces? But I feel like, I get these awards for all this volunteer work, but I'm like, well, I'm doing this for me, man. Because being a part of something, it's like you don't need a uniform to serve your country. I realize that. You could do it right here in your backyard, and that's what I feel like I'm doing now. And it fulfills me inside. So it's like, man, don't give me an award. Like, this is like,
No,
to me, I'm getting more out of this than that.
All of that messaging is so important, and serving your community and not feeling as if you can't, because so many are in need. And those are very, very wise words. I would highly recommend, if you are looking to be inspired, to follow Earl, to engage him. What do you prefer as the best way to reach you for bookings and things like that?
If anybody's interested, check out my website, earlgranville.org. You could do booking there. But you can just message me on social media. Instagram, Earl Granville is my handle.
Yeah.
I feel like everybody has Instagram nowadays. I get a lot of work just through there. But
no, I appreciate you being, I appreciate you being so accessible and so kind, and certainly patient with me trying to nail you down for an interview. I am truly inspired by everything that you do. And if you were going to measure, am I reaching anyone, man, you definitely reached me. Even before I was an amputee, and throughout the years, and certainly once I became an amputee, circling back to you and saying, this man has a vibration that I would like to emulate. This person has an energy, has a life force that I want to kind of tap into in my own way, in my own special way, in my own life, to say, how can I reach my fullest potential within my capacities as an amputee, but more than that, Earl, just as a person, to approach things in such a way where you can be proud of how you, as I would say, you're living high in that frequency. So I want to thank you for being here and serving this community the way that you do, for volunteering your time. And that's actually going to wrap it up for us. Earl Granville, such a pleasure. My name is Rick Bontkowski. This is the AMP'D UP211 podcast, and I want to wish everyone health and happiness, and we will see you next time. Thanks.